Want to keep God's Word with you wherever you go? The King James Bible Study KJV app by Salem Media makes it easy to read, study, share, and pray daily with the timeless KJV translation. Enjoy features like offline access, audio Bible listening, smart search, and tools to highlight, bookmark, and take notes, all designed to keep your Bible study simple and organized. Best of all, it's free to download in the Google Play Store. Grow in your faith every day. Search for King James Bible Study KJV and download the app today.
And welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks. I'm thrilled you could join us today. We are going to be giving you tips on 7 pillars to successful caregiving. And we're going to be talking with Eboni Green, who has been in the field for many, many years doing caregiver education. And she does that actually internationally. And I can't wait for you to meet her. But before I introduce you, I always like to encourage people to swing by alzheimersspeaks.com. We too do a lot of education, and we have tons of free resources for you to tap in. So check out our free educational resources, as well as all of our other offerings that we have at the site. You can also visit our sister community, which is Dementia Map, where you can find support from around the world. And maybe you have a support that you'd like listed in there. Please reach out to me. We would love to add you. There's no cost to do that unless you want extra marketing. So that is just dementiamap.com. So with no further ado, let's introduce you to Eboni. Well, Eboni, I am so excited to have you on the show with us today. So thanks for taking time. I know it's taken us a while to coordinate schedules and things because you're so dang busy, and my schedule is not a whole heck of a lot better. So thanks for being here today. I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to our audience.
Absolutely. I'm Dr. Eboni Green. I am an RN. I have a PhD in healthcare administration, and my focus has been family caregivers and frontline caregivers for quite some time. I have done lots of training, in-person training for family and frontline caregivers, and now find myself in my career really doing the top-end work, working with individuals who may be leaders in healthcare organizations. So I feel like I have a pretty good picture of what we're looking at for caregivers, whether they be family or frontline, from both of those experiences.
Oh, fantastic. And I think big picture wise, I mean, the industry has changed so much from all sides in terms of what the expectations are and what the realities of our healthcare system are, and what we can really expect and should expect from those services and things. So that's great that you have all those perspectives. Have you been personally touched in your own family or circle of friends by people living with dementia?
I have. Presently, my husband's grandmother has dementia. Her dementia is more related to age. She is in her 80s, late 80s, and it is more recent, but it is not any less impactful. It's really been a challenge for us, and mainly it's her memory loss has happened in the last, let's say, 3 to 6 months. It's become very marked. Also, my cousin, who's like a sister, her husband had to just fly back to Germany because his father has what we're thinking is vascular dementia. And so just trying to get things set up for his mom and dad. And so, being that person in healthcare in the family, I'm often impacted by those experiences, knowing those folks that are close to me, and being that person that can kind of give them some insights into what might be a good plan for their care. So definitely currently in a caregiver storm, both with dementia, personally with our grandmother, and then with my closest cousin.
Wow. And that, talk about long distance caregiving in that situation.
Yes.
And everybody wants that silver bullet. And it's like, there just isn't one. Everyone's situation's a little different. And, but being able to be that guiding light, means so much to people. So I'm glad you can play that role in your family. Why don't we talk about, what does success mean when you're offering care to somebody? Because, I think, I know this happened to me. My mom lived with dementia for 30 years. And boy, I pulled my big girl panties up and I was ready to go. And, I wanted to be successful at every level, not for me, but to give her the care that I thought she deserved. And what I thought was success in the beginning to what I felt was success at the end were very, very different. So I'm really interested in your opinion, because I think sometimes some of us can get a little lost in leeway being busy, just to be busy.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about what that looks like, what success looks like, changes throughout your journey. It also really depends on your personal caregiving situation. Part of the reason I'd like to talk a little bit about what success looks like is because it does look different for every individual and their caregiving situation. So there's not one clear, definition of what we would think of as success. It's really, what are you and the person in your care and the family, what are those goals, and how can we work together as a family to achieve those goals? And a lot of times that means also pulling in the professional aspects of things. So when I'm thinking about grandma, she's been in her home all the way up until maybe 2 months ago. And, once the memory loss started to be more pointed, we could tell. And she's been very fiercely independent. And so it's been hard for us to have to make the decision that she's going to be safer in a long-term care setting, and then laying out how each family member or group is going to go up and visit, and how we're going to parse that out. And so at different stages of this particular caregiving journey, things look different depending on what our goal is.
Yeah, very true. And I think for me, your style of care comes into play, because each of us as caregivers, care partners, care companions, whatever the heck you want to call us, we approach it different. And I was involved with a film called A Timeless Love, which really brought that forward in terms of our styles. And sometimes our styles will clash because we're trying to be so protective. And I think that happened within my own family. I was kind of overly anal, type A personality. I got every chart and graph in the, and they have it all planned out. My brothers are like, I just want to stop over.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, you got to have a plan. You got to do certain things. And so I was kind of intimidating, though I didn't realize it until way later. When they shared that with me, and I wish we would have had that conversation sooner, because I was just so anxious, I guess, to give the best possible care, because I thought, my mom and my dad didn't have dementia. He had brain cancer, but they just cared for me so well. I didn't want to let them down. And so our relationships can sometimes get into the way of what care looks like for one another too, I think. And like you said, it all depends on your availability, your resources, your time, your own mental health, all the other tasks on your list. I have found, I'm interested if you are, but I have found that most caregivers don't say, okay, I'll take this on, but now I got to get rid of this. It's just like a pile on. Okay, I'll add this into my schedule too. And then that's where people, I find, feel that they're drowning because they just don't have enough oomph in the day to get through it all.
Absolutely. And I think that we can put those pressures on ourselves. I mean, we are grandma is revered. And so we all want to make sure that we are doing what's best for her and that we're involving her where, she's able to make decisions or tell us what she's wanting and to be gentle with ourselves. The other thing is, like, with this move, I knew that I would not be able to, my emotional attachment to her apartment that she was living in, I wouldn't have been able to go and do the packing up of the home. But I could go and do the visit and make sure she's looking nice and feeling good and, those types of things. And so some folks in your family may be the persons that are able to do certain aspects. It still may be taxing and hard on them, but they can do that part. But they may not be able to be comfortable with the going and visiting because they're seeing her in a different light, and that's harder and emotional. So I think that you're absolutely right. It really is dependent on where folks are.
Yeah, well, and I like that you were honest about, I can't do that. It's going to crush my heart, because I think a lot of times families don't have that conversation, and it might be you're going to pack or you're going to assist with grooming or you're going to be in charge of the doctors or financial or legal. And a lot of people they want to help, but they're not comfortable. And if they're not comfortable, they're not going to do a good job because they're going to be second guessing themselves all the time. And they're going to get a little paranoid of, who's watching me and what are the thoughts? I mean, there's just this whole other piece. So I think having that conversation as a family is really, really important. That people are comfortable and just don't accept whatever is assigned to them if there's a great discomfort, because if it doesn't come out today, it will come out in the future, and it'll come out sideways is what I usually find out on that.
Yeah, because if you are, you maybe have someone who's not as in tune with how they're feeling, and so they avoid, and that being a person who's avoiding something, that can frustrate other members if you don't know why they're avoiding that situation. So I think it is very important to be clear. And if you haven't been, and you hear this conversation and you can go back and say, hey, really, I didn't do that because I was really uncomfortable with it, but I'm willing to do this. I think that makes a big difference too, just in the whole grand scheme of things when you have other folks that you're working with to provide care.
Oh, I definitely agree. Now, you've developed something called the 7 Pillars of Successful Caregiving. Can you kind of lay that out? Because we're all looking for guidance, and what do we need to prioritize and what the heck should we be looking at? Because I haven't done this before, or I've done it before, but boy, it was very different from what I'm dealing with in this situation.
Absolutely. So the 7 pillars are really some foundations for care. I'm going to be peeking. I have self-care, empathy, empowerment, kindness, patience, communication awareness, and active listening. Those are the 7 pillars. And what I find is that things like that you would think would be not very hard to define, sometimes in caregiving, we don't mention or have a clear expectation of what patience or kindness actually looks like in caregiving. And so I had someone say, because we have a course on it, and I have had someone say, well, now we have to teach, things like patience and kindness. And I thought, well, I don't remember having that in nursing training. And I think it would have been very helpful to understand that, patience can look like this and kindness can look like that, but that we don't want to disempower folks because we're thinking we're being patient and kind by maybe doing everything for a client or taking some decision making because we feel like, oh, our client or our loved one, I'm just going to go ahead and make this decision. So I think it's a good idea to have a clear idea of what we're talking about in caregiving with regard to things like patience and kindness and empowerment. But also, I also want to highlight the fact that I always start everything now with self-care because it gets pushed by the wayside so easily. And once you get off track of doing things for yourself, it is very hard to integrate those things back into your daily routine. And so I think self-care, I'm just, we all are in this caregiving space, are all encouraging folks to practice self-care. But then what does that look like when we're saying, take care of yourself?
When you listed things off, I was shocked that you put self-care first because most people don't, even those that are training. And as individuals, most of us don't. It's kind of an afterthought. And if I can squeeze it in, then I'll do it. But we still don't really even know what that looks like or what it means or why it's so critically important. So I love that you mentioned that first. Can you talk a little bit about what is self-care? Because again, I don't think people really know what it really is and why it's so critically important when we're caring for someone else.
I think this has been an evolution for me through different caregiving experiences to identify what it is to care for yourself. And so again, this is one thing that may look different for every person, but it really does mean prioritizing yourself and being intentional. And that's my going to be my new word for 2026 that I'm getting. My one word is to be intentional. And so making sure that you set time aside for those things that are going to nurture your well-being, whether that be things like a hot bath or a good book or a portion of a good book. Maybe you don't get to read the book, but you have the recorded book that you could go and listen to. For somebody who's working in the field, maybe that means on your way to work, you listen to something really great and you don't think about caregiving, and on your way home, you think of listen to something really great. It's very intentional planning of putting things that are going to enhance your well-being first. Doctor's appointments too, exercise. So there's a wide variety of things, but to put it on the schedule, where you're going to be doing things for self-care I think is important too.
Well, and I think, I liked when you talked about just listening to music. These don't have to be big things. They don't have to be expensive things, but I think so many times I leave one appointment, I go to the next, and I'm checking my to-do list. I'm like not calming myself down, getting relaxed, so I'm fueled and full and attentive for the next thing that I have to do. And I think that is so important. And I had no idea how important that was. In my life when I was caring for my mom and dad, I sold real estate, and I would actually go into my office, and then in between, I didn't do it between every appointment, but at least once a day, I would put a sign up on my door. I'd tell my assistant, don't bother me. I'd turn the lights off. I'd light a candle. I'd put on some meditation music. And for, 10 or 20 minutes, I was just quiet. I stopped my head from buzzing and feeling overwhelmed. And, if I did that when my day was going really good, it just lifted it up even more. And when I did it when I was really anxious and overwhelmed, I could totally feel the difference and, rejuvenated to go, okay, I can step into this now. I can keep going instead of just building on those anxiety levels that I think a lot of times we're not even conscious of because we haven't slowed down enough to take a measure of where we're at. Everyone else is probably reading it in the room, but we think we got it all under control. And so I think that's really important. Let's talk about empathy. Let's kind of go through these one by one, if you don't mind. And
Sure.
what does that look like, and what does that mean in terms of care?
So when I'm thinking about empathy, I'm thinking about how we may understand an individual's diagnosis and their unmet needs. And so with empathy, we understand that, but we also work to do the work of empowerment. So I can empathize with you. I can understand that this component, this part is challenging. And so I'm going to help you in this way. But I'm not going to go in and do every single thing so that then later on you're not having the ability to do the things that you can do for yourself. And I'm, making sure that you can do that for as long as possible. So that we're not working from that sympathetic. And I would have caregivers say, oh, my poor client, I just go in and I do everything for her because, I love her and I just want to just do everything. And that's wonderful, except when you're not there and other folks are not doing the same thing, or your loved one or client starts to lose ability because we're working from more sympathy rather than the empathetic. I understand. I'm going to do the things that need to be done, and I'm going to assist you with the things you need assistance with.
See, I think that's so critically important. I love that you talked about empowerment, using that empathy to empower and not take away. I think it's really very easy for people to just take over. And usually we take over because it's easier because we don't have that patience you were talking about, and things. And that is, to me, absolutely critical, for people to understand the importance of that. Because I always use the example for me, like, I don't like getting my oil changed because I don't want to not have access to my car for 20 minutes, but think if your whole day, everything was done for you and you're kind of like, well, what am I here for?
Right.
Why can't I, especially when you could do it, maybe not exactly how you did it before, but you're allowed to do as much as you can to feel purposeful. I think that's really important. Now, empowerment, you kind of touched on. Anything else that you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, I think we do still also with empowerment, we do want individuals to have that opportunity to reach their highest level of functioning, whatever that looks like. And so it's, again, all about meeting unmet needs, but supporting for the things that a person can do for themselves, and not being, not making the schedule or the things that are going to be done without the input.
Need a daily spark of hope and direction? Let the Daily Bible app from Salem Media be that spark. This free Android app delivers an uplifting verse each morning, plus reading plans, devotions, and trusted podcasts from leaders like Joyce Meyer and Rick Warren. Prefer to listen instead? The Daily Bible app reads verses, reading plans, and chapters aloud, handy for the headphones moment of your day. Choose from versions like ESV, NIV, KJV, and more, and bookmark favorites to revisit later. Share inspiring messages with loved ones right from the app. Feel God's presence in every notification. Search for Daily Bible app on Google Play and begin your day with hope, purpose, and peace.
Of the person in your care.
How about kindness?
So I think kindness, sometimes we think in caregiving, you might feel like, are you too kind? And so we really want to do things that we're not necessarily seeking something in return for.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a good measure of kindness. And that small kindnesses can go a really long way. Sometimes just that simple word. And I feel like right now, everybody just needs, you just never know what someone is going through. And so we all need some measure of grace, and that comes with kindness.
And like you said, kindness can be really simple. It doesn't have to be these big, huge things. It could just be sitting next to somebody on the couch and being in their presence. I know I found with my mom, just sometimes we didn't talk, but that was a really comfortable, fulfilling moment where we just both were able to breathe and appreciate each other's presence without having to be busy. I hear a lot of people living with dementia. It's like, I don't have to be busy all the time. I like to relax. Just relax with me. If it's smelling the flowers or soaking in the sun or watching a TV show or having an idle conversation or being silly or, whatever, going for a walk. It can be really simple little pleasures.
Yes.
That I think are important. Why don't you keep going with your pillars? I don't think I got them all down. So after kindness, I didn't catch them all.
Did we talk about patience?
No, we didn't.
So I think patience can look different too. I think sometimes that patience, again, means that you're not going to do everything for someone dressing, because again, it's important to be able, even if it's going to take me longer, it's important to have that opportunity. But also sometimes for some folks, they're so patient that their patience leads to inaction. So they're not wanting to ruffle anyone's feathers because that, with that other person that may be moving things along. And so they know that it needs to be done, but don't necessarily want to say anything. And so you can be too patient also. So I think it's important to have a good measure there of patience in your day, and patience when you're working with clients or loved ones, but then also knowing how to turn on the switch and say, okay, this is more important here. Let's get this done, so that you're not overly patient.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I hear from my support groups all the time is, where do I buy a bottle of patience? I don't have enough, and they're all really trying, but we all lose our patience. We lost our patience before illness came into our life. And this is just an opportunity to kind of, I hate to say slap us in the face, but remind us how important patience is, that none of us are perfect. And we all make mistakes, and we all have little irritating tics that drive somebody else crazy. And, when you're caring for someone who's ill, those may be more prominent, at this point. But how would you want to be treated? And
Right.
I think we would all admit we would want to be treated better sometimes than what we treat people because of our lack of patience. And so
Mhm.
I just think that's a good goal for anybody in the world, period.
Yeah.
To work on that one. What else is on your list besides patience? And I think you got
Communication awareness.
okay.
So then that really relates more to how you are coming across to someone else
Mm-hmm.
when you're communicating. And so just being aware of your body language, being aware of the person that you're communicating with their body language. And when we're talking about loved ones or clients with cognitive loss, memory loss, the person may not in your care may not verbally say things, but you can sure tell a lot if you're patient and you watch their body language. And so you can tell if someone's maybe in pain and get to where that pain is at, or you can tell if maybe the person is hungry, and you can get to the bottom of that by just kind of watching and being aware of that verbal and nonverbal communication.
Yeah. Oh, I really believe in that self-awareness. And it's not just reading their body language, but being aware of our own body language. I know I
Mhm.
found, I'm 66, so I'm older, but I grew up in the era of the Stepford wives, where everyone had a smile on their face and all chaos was breaking loose in their house and their lives. But boy, everyone had a smile on their face trying to hide it all. And one of the things, especially people with dementia say, and I think so often people think, well, they won't know, they can't understand. But what people with dementia tell me is that they actually tap into that sensory care, that multi-level communication basis more because they have a disability. Just like with
Mhm.
someone who is blind, hears deeper and things like that. So it was really, really interesting. That's why they want us to look them, square in the eye so they can read everything that's coming off our face and our arms and our shoulders and our sides and, our rolling of the eyes that a lot of times we're not even conscious that we're doing. So I think that that's a really, really critical one. And then I guess I would just add to that is being able to really read the room. Like, how's your person when you
Mhm.
first walk in, and how's your person after you enter? Because if there's a change, it's probably because of you, not because
Mhm.
of them. They're reacting to something off of you, and a lot of times mirroring it back. And I think we get so fast paced, we forget what we're giving off because we're just moving through stuff.
I agree, and I think that that's where that intentionality word comes back again. Is that you've got to be, and I've seen some really great caregivers who would kind of like before they go in the patient's room in a professional setting, like gather themselves
Mm-hmm.
so that they know that when they're going in there, I'm going in there with this type of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes a great deal of awareness
Mm-hmm.
to understand that if, like you said, if you go in the room and it gets to be intense, it's probably has something to do with the way that you walked in. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, was there another pillar yet?
Yeah, active listening.
Okay.
So I think sometimes, especially in fast-paced environments, active listening goes out the door.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Folks are not necessarily listening to hear, they're listening to respond. And in those types of situations, especially when you're talking about complex emotions, complex situations,
Mm-hmm.
that the best thing you can do is really listen
Mm-hmm.
and let that person guide the conversation. I have an aunt that had a bunch of things going on and decided at the end of, I want to say, August to go ahead and seek hospice care. And she did pass away, but I am amazed at her intentionality, and I'm also amazed and feel blessed by having the opportunity to go and visit her a couple of times a week. No phone, no whatever she wants to do, I'm there doing those things. And the one time that my husband had dropped me off, so I checked my phone to make sure he hadn't, texted her or anything. And she said, "Oh, am I holding you up?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not. I'm just checking this to make sure, I don't miss a message." And I think that again has to do with really all the other times, just being there and actively listening and not doing anything other than paying attention to her and her needs and the movies we were watching and the things she wanted to tell me. I feel very blessed by that.
Need a daily spark of hope and direction? Let the Daily Bible app from Salem Media be that spark. This free Android app delivers an uplifting verse each morning, plus reading plans, devotions, and trusted podcasts from leaders like Joyce Meyer and Rick Warren. Prefer to listen instead? The Daily Bible app reads verses, reading plans, and chapters aloud, handy for the headphones moment of your day. Choose from versions like ESV, NIV, KJV, and more, and bookmark favorites to revisit later. Share inspiring messages with loved ones right from the app. Feel God's presence in every notification. Search for Daily Bible app on Google Play and begin your day with hope, purpose, and peace.
Well, and it was nice that she, picked that up and came out and asked, because a lot of times people won't ask or comment, because that kind of puts us on the straight and narrow of, gosh, we're so used to checking our phones and checking our iPads, and every, beep and ringy dingy, we jump and we get a little edgy, and we don't even know it. It's just become the norm in today's world. And I found that with my mom too. I remember her saying, this was back in the day of pagers and phones. And she goes, "Lori, the world isn't going to stop, And I just had to chuckle. And it's like, I knew that, but it was just such a horrible habit of having to jump. And the more you jump, the more people expect you to, stop your life and your world and respond to theirs. And a lot of times it's not most of the times it's not an immediate need. It could wait. And
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that was the 7 pillars. Is that correct?
It was. Yes.
The only other one I would love to see you add to that one is share your insights and your knowledge with your team.
Okay.
Because I think so often people, they experience something that could help everyone else, and so if you find something that works or doesn't work and is a trigger, share it so everyone else can either avoid it or hop on the bandwagon with it. And I think so often we don't think what we know is that valuable, but I think it's extremely valuable, and it makes I think the care team more solid. That's just my personal feeling. And I know that there can be some people, especially what can happen in work environment, or it can happen at home where, they just think they know it all, but it's, if it's a professional team, it's getting that nurse or that lead person to get everybody to share and pull, because everybody has knowledge at every level, or they have questions that maybe others can help with. And I see that in support groups too. The more everybody talks, the more comfortable they feel with what they're doing, because they know they're not always going to get it right, and they'll get confirmation from others. Oh yeah, that happened to me too. And it takes away some of that guilt or feeling incompetent. And then they kind of brainstorm together, which is really, I think, very, very beautiful on that. Now you have a book that talks about all of this too, that people can purchase. I believe it's called Successful Caregiving, the things that no one tells you.
Mhm.
And boy, there's a lot of things no one tells us, when we
That is the truth. And I love that you added the sharing of knowledge, because sometimes when you are working with someone that maybe you haven't worked with in a while, or you're just, in our family, you're going to visit a family member, and there's a certain way that someone likes things done.
Mhm.
And if you can have someone show you that, it's it's better for you because you're not trying to figure it out, but it's really great for the person in your care because they're getting that consistency of having it done the way they want it done, also without having to go through basically feeling like you're retraining every person that comes
Mhm.
in your space. So I
Yeah.
really think that's a good addition.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think, one of the things I think it's so important in, I'm kind of in the thick of things myself again with touring communities, and it avoids the inconsistencies and it rebuilds the teams. And to me, and disagree with me if you like, but I just feel like we've destroyed teams in healthcare. I mean, everything has gotten so task oriented, and this is my job and this is your job. And I think back to when I was 20, which was a very long time ago, but I mean, we just all jumped in. You
Mhm.
need help. I mean, there was just and we wanted to, but
Right.
we were very relationship based as a team. And I don't see that or feel that most of the time out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, you can really feel it in the hospital settings. I have not had very good, um, there might be the nurses are really great,
Mhm.
but the communication with the doctors leaves you wanting, or, on down the line.
Mhm.
And I do agree with you that that has to do with not feeling like there's synergy, for the fact that it doesn't matter what component that you're doing, we're doing these things to help
Mhm.
meet the needs of our patients or clients. And I'm not seeing that. And it's really disheartening, especially when you've had a career and a personal life that you've dedicated to um, trying to improve the lives of the caregivers, and seeing that there's such disconnect right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of that I think has to do with the turnover, but I think there was a lot more mentoring and shadowing when someone
Mhm.
came aboard. And now it's sit at the computer, pass the test, sign the papers, and you're kind of off on your own. Yeah, there's a little bit, but there's not near as much as it used to be. And so that makes it difficult on everybody when you
Mhm.
don't feel you've got somebody to be able to approach, because I don't want them to think I don't know how to do this, but I don't know how to do this,
Right.
because no
Right.
one really, prepared me for this. So I think setting up some kind of, if it's not an official team, even a buddy system of, if you're not sure, who do you ask? Or if you need help, who do you ask? And then how do you even ask in the state of the world now?
Yeah, and it's not just your frontline folks, it's, nurses too, with when you mention turnover and things of that nature. If you're not feeling valued at your organization, we all go into this, most of us, because we want to help people. And when you leave your day and you feel like you're not helping people, that can really be very disheartening, and make it difficult for you to want to stay in that space of caregiving. So
Mhm.
I think it's important that we can have opportunities to do meaningful work and
Mhm.
feel supported in that. And then that in turn can help the families feel heard and seen. And that's
Yep.
not happening consistently either.
Well, and I think that's something that a lot of times, if someone's getting care, if it's home health care, if it's like living in a community, adult day, a hospital or clinic, a lot of times they focus on, well, we're being paid for that person, not for the family. And it's like the family's holding this puzzle together. So you better support them as well, or it's all going to crumble. And so I think families look at it very differently in terms of who they're paying for, who they're paying for the services for. Yeah, you can say it's this, that, and this, but they see themselves as part of the team. For most part, they want to be part of the team. They want education and knowledge, and to feel like they're valued in this whole thing.
Absolutely.
It's a loved one. It's not just a number of a client.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm just going to take a brief break here. For those of you who, just are hopping on, we are talking with Dr. Eboni Green, who is also an RN, and she just brings years of experience, hands-on, for caregiving and education. And she is the founder of Caregiver Support Services. And we just went over her 7 pillars, which are absolutely fantastic. So you want to rewind if you hopped on midway. I do want to just give you her contact information. Her website is caregiversupportservices.com. She also does caregiving training nationally and internationally. And you'll find a link for that. She has a Facebook page, Dr. Eboni Ivory Green. She is on LinkedIn, and Facebook has a support group called Caregiver Support Services, and she's also on Twitter as Dr. Eboni. I also like to give a shout out to Q for Good. They actually are my webmasters, and I just adore them. They're easy to work with. A lot of people are trying to develop stuff, and if you're like me and don't want to go to the blue screen or the black hole, they got you covered, and they're reasonable, and they actually follow through with the timelines they give you, which I think is beautiful. So check out Q for Good if that is a need for you. And let's go ahead and get back to Eboni. I want you to talk about, creating kind of a caregiver action plan. What's that all about? Is that really needed, and, how does it help people?
So I think that caregiver action plans can be extremely helpful if you are new to caregiving, if you have a caregiving team. So say you have siblings that are involved in your loved one's care. I actually have a 6-step process on the Caregiver Support Services site and a free course that you can take, just so that you can get things laid out, know what you are needing. And again, with that six step process, we always start with self-care. So what are you going to do for yourself? And here are some links and suggestions for that. And then, just gathering the proper paperwork. I found myself most recently with our caregiving situation with Grandma that we were kind of caught off guard because she has been fiercely independent and not needing our assistance. And all of a sudden, a couple of hospital stays, and now we're really in the throes of caregiving. And so there were things that we didn't, paperwork, things like that we had not updated. And I thought, boy, this is a very interesting situation to find yourself in when this is your life's work, is letting everybody else know about how they should be having a good plan. And we haven't updated our plan, and now we're needing to. So I thought, let me lay these 6 steps and pull some things together for a good basis of what you might need, who you might talk to, how you can document the things that you need, just so that you are prepared should a situation arise. And I don't think that this is necessarily something that you should do only for the person that is in your care or could be in your care, but for yourself too. I had a major surgery last year, around this time. And oh my word, the amount of assistance that you need during those times can be really something. And so you want your family members to have access to the things that they need somewhere written down so that transition can be easier.
Well, and that's so helpful. I'm having a plan of action, I think is important. And I think it gives people comfort as well. For me, I kind of overdid that in some ways, and it wasn't necessarily a plan of action, but everything I heard that could go wrong, I wanted to make sure I had a detour plan. And then I got really busy taking care of my detour plans. And then that obstructed me from being present with really truly caring and being relationship based. So I would just caution people on that an overall plan is good. It's kind of like a will or a power of attorney. You can always go in and tweak it, and that's really what it's meant to do, because things will change, as the disease progresses, or even as your life changes. You might be single and getting married, or getting divorced, or moving, or all of those things are going to have an impact on your ability to care and
absolutely
and stuff. So I think that's real smart. And you have a course that people can actually sign up for that on your website. Why don't you tell us a little bit more on what people can expect when they go to your Caregiver Support Services website?
Absolutely. So we have a variety of tools that are available there. The first things that you'll want to look at under caregiver support are the 6-step process for developing an action plan. And then you might also want to explore the wellness U model and look at how you can be empowered to take care of yourself. So if you get stuck on what can you do for yourself, there's nine different components to the U model, and there's articles and resources for every one of those components. And then the rest of the site is really dedicated now to, we also have before I get there, we also have a blog, so you can sign up for our blog there. And then we also have a lot of training, and the training is really geared toward organizations that maybe have caregivers in their employ, and how they can really wrap them up in that orientation phase, or if we're needing someone who's going to go to long-term care. What I've found in my practice is that there is often some overlap in what family caregivers are looking for and what frontline caregivers are looking for with regard to training and being comfortable. So all of the courses that I have on the site currently keep that in mind. Some folks will say, well, I don't want to become a doctor, and you don't as a family caregiver, but there might be things that you feel like you would like to know more about. And so those courses are available there for individually too.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I know when I went on, you've got a great blog. You've got just tons of information, for people to scope out and things. And so good for you. And it's an easy site to maneuver as well. But you won't be lost for information and support, I don't think, on your site. So if you're a family member or your business professional looking for education, please, check out Eboni's site. Anything that we've missed that we need to cover?
I don't think so. I just think that we're looking to make sure that caregivers have, with the 7 pillars of successful caregiving, that is an opportunity for family and frontline caregivers to not think about the things that you need to necessarily do for your loved one, but how you can position that so that your whole experience is more successful. The second half of the book, well, there's 3. So the second part of the book is about things like, how do you work with it when your client is angry, or you have someone who's depressed? what would be some things that you could do, or they're isolated. And sometimes you find yourself in those situations. I know I have, where clients are, especially in home care, when I was a home care aide, where maybe I didn't know about anxiety that much, and how me coming into the home, there's a family member there, and then there's the person in my care, and me coming in, and how that may increase the family's anxiety, and what can I do to be a better caregiver there. And then the third section is about grief. And so it not only the family aspect of grief, but also what happens when a caregiver, loses a client. It is really hard on us when we lose someone that we've been caring for a long time, or as a family member. So I talk about the loss of my father a few years ago. First, my personal experience, and then I really talk about the next part. I really talk about bringing it back to you and how you might feel as a caregiver when you lose a client that you love.
Yeah, because these are relationships, and that is so critically important. Again, you can go to Eboni's site at caregiversupportservices.com. You can find her national and international training there. You can find her on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and we'll have all of those links available for you as well on that. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all the work that you're doing in this industry. It is so important that we support our peeps that are supporting those in need. And the more we can all work together, the better off we'll all be, is my professional opinion and my personal opinion on that. So thank you.
Thank you.
To my listeners, I always ask you to be a giver of hope. Like, click, and share, not because we count our numbers, but because we know that you have people in your sphere of influence. They might be, a neighbor, a coworker, might be another family member that's in need, that hasn't told you that they're in need. And by sharing this information, it can really ease the process for them reaching out for help. A lot of times we don't know where to reach, and that can be scary in and of itself. And so coming from a friendly venue makes a big, big impact. It costs you no money. It takes very little time to click and share. So always encourage you to do that. And if you feel inclined, you can always download one of our graphics that you are a giver of hope, and help us connect everybody to all of the service products and tools that they need. Last, I always encourage people to check out Alzheimer's Speaks. We have lots of free educational resources there. And on our sister company, Dementia Map, there you can access not just Alzheimer's Speaks, but global resources around the world. And that is for profit, nonprofit. It's for research. It's for advocacy. It's for patients and families that have knowledge bases. Could be a YouTube channel, a Facebook group, a support group, written a book, all kinds of things. We just have to share that we're out there, and we have to acknowledge sometimes how much we do know. Even when we feel we don't know, we're always going to be, 3 steps behind somebody and 3 steps ahead of somebody else. That's just life. So don't discount who you are and what you know. Share it. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Need a daily spark of hope and direction? Let the Daily Bible app from Salem Media be that spark. This free Android app delivers an uplifting verse each morning, plus reading plans, devotions, and trusted podcasts from leaders like Joyce Meyer and Rick Warren. Prefer to listen instead? The Daily Bible app reads verses, reading plans, and chapters aloud, handy for the headphones moment of your day. Choose from versions like ESV, NIV, KJV, and more, and bookmark favorites to revisit later. Share inspiring messages with loved ones right from the app. Feel God's presence in every notification. Search for Daily Bible app on Google Play and begin your day with hope, purpose, and peace.